Good morning and welcome to What's the Word Wednesdays. I'm Audrey Walker, and today we will be celebrating Literacy Month with a discussion on bringing diverse stories to your young children. Make sure to put your questions in the Q&A box if you're watching on Zoom or the comment box on Facebook, and we'll answer your questions in the last 10 minutes of today's town hall. Now, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Jeff Miles, Senior Director of Early Childhood Excellence with United Way for Southeastern Michigan, to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's town hall on early literacy, focusing on why it's important to bring diverse stories to your children and how to talk about them. We know that learning starts the day a child is born, and one of our best tools for teaching our youngest children is through stories. It's important for children to see a variety of people, including ones that are like them as they learn about the world. Stories can be oral or delivered on a screen or found in books. Today, we are joined by United Way's very own expert in the field, Ashley Hart, who will share some widely available books that open the diversity of the world to all of our children. Ashley is the Early Childhood Training and Technical Assistance Specialist with United Way, where she supports 11 counties with their training and technical assistance needs. She also develops early childhood professional development trainings that are facilitated throughout the community and are available online at no cost to early childhood professionals, parents, and caregivers. Ashley has 10 years of experience in early childhood education. Before joining our organization, Ashley worked at a child care center as a toddler teacher. She also served as an early learning communities instructor with Oakland Family Services. Ashley has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in social justice from Marygrove College. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. So 1 second, you guys should be seeing the PowerPoint on your screen. Hopefully everybody can see it. Perfect. Okay, so early literacy. Why is it important to bring diverse stories to your children? And also, how do you do it? So first, I just want to talk a little bit about early literacy. Jeff mentioned it a little bit about it, so I just want to go into it a little more in detail before we get started. So if you could turn to the next slide. So many people mistakenly believe that literacy development in children is only about teaching them how to read, excuse me, through formal instruction. But early literacy starts the day that they're born and it continues throughout their childhood. Woo, there we go. It is a complex task that, sorry, ooh, I cannot talk. My bad, guys. So in the reality, early literacy development is a continuous process that begins when they're born and continues throughout their years of childhood. It is also a complex context. It is also a complex task that begins with oral language, and reading and writing skills are also developed consistently and concurrently. So throughout the first 3 years, they're actually exploring playing with books, singing nursery rhymes, listening to stories, recognizing words, and learning how to write. These are just a few literacy skills that are truly the building blocks of language and literacy development. Also, acquiring early literacy skills are essential to literacy development and should be its focus. In order for kids to read and actually comprehend and to write, they have to learn these skills. A couple of these early literacy skills are building vocabulary, learning how to use language or learning how language actually works, telling stories, sharing ideas, asking questions, because you know they ask 1,001 what questions, why, and how questions. Also learning how to handle books, because sometimes it starts with, throwing them, chucking them at other people, putting them in their mouths. They're learning about a variety of books such as stories, fact books, poetry, cookbooks, etc. They begin to write through drawing and scribbling. They play with sounds of language through songs, rhyming, and tongue twisters. Also, they build a language and the knowledge of the world around them. So you can move on to the next slide. So why is it important to introduce diverse books? So we see the importance of introducing literacy period in books, but I put it into like 3 main categories. The first one is it helps to inspire and create impact. So children need to see people who actually look like them, who have faced challenges, overcome obstacles, and made a difference in the world. When we see people like ourselves in media, including fiction, we get a glimpse of who we might become. We also feel validated. We can also gain role models and inspiration through literature, whether that's poetry, books, stories, role modeling, etc. Number 2 would be it provides a mirror to identity. So it's important to ensure that kids have exposure to characters and stories featuring diversity in their race, gender, cultural, and religious norms, abilities, and other factors. So we know that children's book can act as both mirrors and windows to the world. Mirrors, in the fact that it can reflect the child's own lives, and windows in the fact that they have a chance to learn about other people's lives. We also know that this type of self-reflection opportunity to read or hear about different lives is essential for people, period. And number 3, it allows for connections to be built. When kids enjoy reading titles with characters who actually look like them, it helps them form a connection to the book on a different level. Identifying with characters in a story allows for a deeper comprehension of the text because kids are actually making these kinds of self-connections. They're building self-confidence. They're seeing themselves in the books that they actually read. And we can move on to the next slide. So representation matters. So as you can see on the screen, on the left, there's statistics from 2018, and then on the right from 2019. Both of these are brought by the same company. So the Cooperative Children's Book Center took an inventory of 3,134 books and actually found these statistics. Basically, both statistics show that the importance of diversity is not being shown in the representation of children's book. So many of the books still have white, male able-bodied Christian characters, which really doesn't reflect the world that we live in right now. So in 2018, you have 27% of characters were either animals or other, and then 50% were white characters. And then you see that minorities have small percentages of characters actually being displayed in books. And then in 2019, there's slight increases for minorities, and then a slight decrease in white, and then others as well. You can move on to the next slide. So when thinking about this, we want to be very intentional in picking out books and introducing them. So ultimately, the way you introduce books or anything to your kids is up to you, and is really based on the child and their interest and learning style. But I encourage you to really think about the following things. Think about what you actually want the children to learn. So what do you want them to learn? Because ultimately what you're teaching them on a daily basis about different races, cultures, ethnicities, religions, disabilities, abilities, socioeconomic class is what they actually learn. So by exposing them to a variety of books, toys, foods, TV shows, music, movies, experiences is what they'll have a chance to actually, see and identify with. Also, think about the various ways to introduce stories. So what topics are you going to bring up? Maybe you make it into a game. I know I used to do this all the time when I used to be in the classroom because young toddlers, they have very short attention spans. I'm grown and I have a short attention span. So you have to be creative. So coming up with different games, songs, a lot of the books are songs, like nursery rhymes. They came from books, you created songs. It always helps to throw your child's name into the song. That's another great way of introducing it. Creating various activities, asking open-ended questions. Also, I encourage you to get comfortable talking about differences and being honest with your child. Because remember, kids are like sifters. They hear everything. They take what they want, they internalize it, and then they spew it back to you when they are ready. You can move on to the next slide. I also encourage you to encourage your child to explore the world with open eyes, mind, and heart. So when it comes to picking out and choosing these books, I want you to think about the following dimensions of diversity and social identity groups. So looking for books with different races, classes, genders, abilities, sexual orientation, and religion. And then the next slide, we're going to talk about diverse images. So grabbing books that have diverse images with general stories or images about characters from historically marginalized or underrepresented groups. So for example, if I wanted to introduce Scaredy Kate, which talks about a girl and her experiences of feeling scared, I might introduce it as, hey, let's talk about feelings, which maybe they don't know about feelings. They don't know how to identify their feelings. So we might talk about feelings or create a song about feelings. And as you can see, there's a couple other books on here. Then you can move on to the next slide. And then the next one is celebration of diversity and differences. So stories that proactively point out and celebrate differences. So for example, if I was introducing all the colors of the earth, I might choose an activity where, hey, there's a variety of different colored construction paper and a paper plate. And I asked children to trace their hands, their family's hands, and ultimately glue it on the paper plate. I let them do it. Then they could see the variety of different hands, sizes, colors that they decided to use. So it shows that, yes, everybody's hand may look different, but everyone has, or all their family members have hands, quote unquote. And that it's okay that, the hands all look different. And then next slide would be life experiences of diverse groups. So stories that have insight or give specific experiences from people from different backgrounds. So there's a variety of stories on the screen. Let's say I chose The Proudest Blue. I might just show them the front cover and the back cover and ask open-ended questions such as, well, what do you see? And what are you wondering about this book? What could the proudest blue actually mean? So getting their input, asking an open-ended question so they can let me know what they already know. Because sometimes we underestimate children and their abilities and what they actually know. And then for the next slide, lessons on inclusion. So there's a variety of books, and I've put some on the screen. So these are different stories that encourage children to be kind and welcoming to everyone, and to interrupt their biases and stereotypes that maybe they don't know they have, or maybe we don't know we have. So for example, one of my favorite books is Pink is for Boys. So I might have children actually draw their favorite toy or activity and color it their favorite color. And then we have a dialogue about that. We can also have a dialogue about, hey, do you know any kids, any of your friends that play sports where only girls are allowed to play or only boys are allowed to play? Would you like to be on one of those teams, or would you like a mixed team, etc.? Then slide 11 is lessons about discrimination. So stories actually showing about empowering children who are actually being bullied, made fun of, or discriminated against because of their identity. So one of my other favorite books also is Marisol McDonald Doesn't Match. And it's about a little girl who celebrates a multiracial background and pride in her individuality through a creative nonconformist attitude. So, hey, while reading this story, I might ask children to look at the details on the story or in the picture and tell me what doesn't match about Marisol, or what do they notice about Marisol? And is that okay? Do they like anything about Marisol's outfit? What outfits do they like to wear, etc.? And then other considerations may be holidays. So finding books that celebrate various holidays or gives clues or insights about a variety of holidays. Also language. So yes, maybe they only speak one language, but you're introducing various languages or books that talk about languages, such as sign language. I know we used to use that in our center as well. Also a variety of books that talk about different authors or have different authors, like a diverse set of authors. And then creativity. So we want to continue being intentional and creative when it comes to reading stories. And not just about the story, but actually where the story comes from or the book comes from. So that's the importance of having diverse authors. And hey, if you don't see yourself in a book, or there's a book that you don't want to read, you can create it. So I encourage parents, caregivers, providers, teachers to create stories. Storytelling is awesome. You can create stories from the top of your head and or have kids help you create these stories. Also, hey, you could become a new author if you publish your stories, or encourage your children to publish their stories as well. And then I want to thank you guys for sticking it out with me. And if you guys are interested in a list of some of these books that I actually have in the PowerPoint, feel free to email me. My email is actually on the screen. And or I'm not sure if you can provide your email address in the chat and we could send it out to you.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing all this valuable information and your contact information. I know we had a few people who were interested in getting your PowerPoint. There's so many great stories that you shared, and not only that, but activities as well to do with children, because I know that a lot of times it can just start with trying to figure out, how to start the conversation. So can you share any kind of basic questions that I could ask my child to start the conversation around equity, or when introducing stories that revolve around equity?
It's just really like depending on the child and the age, just asking open-ended questions like how do you feel in your classroom, or how do you feel about the world, like the city you live in? Because I know that's like a good conversation starter that I asked one of my cousins, like, hey, do you actually like your neighborhood? Well, what do you like about your neighborhood? And she started talking about, oh, I like my library. Okay, so what about the library do you like? There's kids my age. Okay, so then that's a start. And we started talking about, okay, so kids your age, and she thinks she's grown. So these kids are actually older than her, but I'm like, okay, at least she's, aware of her surroundings, and she likes interacting with a variety of people. She says she sees people that look like her, but also that don't look like her, and she likes them both, which is great because she's like, you're supposed to treat everybody with R-E-S-P-C-T. Respect song, because that's something we sing all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. Now, in regards to that too, then, if your children are asking a lot of tough questions that maybe you feel like you are not able to answer, you're not sure how to answer, or you don't necessarily want to put your own bias into the response, because I know that as a parent that could be concerning. You're like, I want to talk about this in a way that's exploring the conversation rather than pushing certain ideas, depending on what those are. Are there certain resources you could recommend, or anything to go along with that?
I always say be honest with your kids. I'm quick to say, oh, I'm not sure. Let's research it. Let's turn it into an activity where we can go online and search about it. So depending on the topic, I love using 0 to 3 website. I love using High Scope website. You can always go to Great Start to Quality website, depending on the topics and what you're trying to figure out, and exploring with your child, making it an activity where I'm not sure, or let's look into it. Let's go to the library. Let's go online to an online library and look it up.
Okay. And then what are some of the maybe what nots, or like what not to say, or maybe what not to talk about that parents can take into account when they're discussing diversity with their children?
What not to talk about?
If there's any specifics that you can think about.
Yeah, I as of right now, I can't think of any specifics. As long as your intent is good, your way of doing it is your way. You may find out that way is not the best approach. Hey, that's a learning experience. And then that brings around you trying it again, or trying a different method, which is cool. Because hey, most times for parents, it's practice.
Yes. And we had a question here too. If I'm a parent and I'm not a good reader, or I don't feel like I have the confidence in doing that, what can we do?
Practice with the child and being open. Like, I love reading, but hey, let's practice reading. Gaining that confidence yourself, because your kids see it. They know it. They notice when you don't read. It doesn't even have to be like stories with actual words. Start off with picture books, talking about, what's happening with the books, and then slowly gaining access to books with words, just a little bit of words, and then, expanding your book selection, or going outside, taking a walk and reading the different signs, because reading is looking and identifying pictures, and kids, talking about their experiences. That's early literacy skills. So like with more practice, they're getting more confidence, and so are their kids. Also practice, like logic reading also helps, and using their peer process. Practice, and they'll get it.
Okay. So focusing on the questions. And I like that you gave a bunch of questions when you were talking about the books, like what do you see, what do you wonder, and getting the kids really to engage and talk about what they think as well. What about, as an adult, obviously we can have emotional reactions to, overwhelming situations or what's happening currently in our world and things like that. Are there resources or tips for parents to kind of not let our emotions or our viewpoints like take over conversations with our kids when we're trying to talk to them about what's going on in the world as it relates to even diversity within books and stories?
Yeah, there definitely are resources like the two charts that I have from the Cooperative Child Organization. That's one resource that you could use. They have different tips on how not to like place your bias in certain things.
Right.
Also, there's a variety, like the Justice League on their website, they have resources that helps you introduce books without stating your bias in the, like, I guess, most non-biased way and also intentional way. Those are a few resources, but there's plenty out there. And also, hey, just taking the opportunity, recognizing your bias, thinking about that, and then thinking about what you want your child to learn, and then practicing, and then going to your child. So, hey, it might be, hey, I need my sister to come over here and let me practice introducing this book to my child with my friend or with my aunts before I actually go to my child.
Because I think sometimes as parents, there are ideas we want our children to learn, but we don't want to do it in a way that feels, overwhelming or like, this is important because you need to know this types of situations. So, I appreciate that. And especially keeping it to the open-ended questions, just kind of exploring different ideas with children too.
And another thing they could also go to, like if your child's in school, pairing up with the teacher, because those open-ended questions throughout telling the story is part of dialogic reading. So maybe you could get one-on-one help with your caregiver and or teachers. So therefore you have more, cooks in the kitchen. You are all working on the same thing.
And speaking of that, if I wanted to see more books around diversity and inclusion introduced either into my child's curriculum or into their school, what is a good way to approach that? Not only approach the conversation, but then really try to make that happen within the school.
I say, especially now, being open. So hopefully everybody has good relationships or a decent relationship with their teacher or education system, and improving that relationship to the point where I can come openly and ask you about introducing these things into the curriculum. Becoming part of like a parent board so that you can introduce more things and it actually happens. If it doesn't happen the first time, hey, keep pushing it, keep pushing it. You keep advocating, because who's gonna advocate for your child if you don't?
And I guess, I would just be curious to know, you had mentioned, I liked your examples of mirrors and windows to books. So seeing ourselves and then seeing other people. What do you think is, good balance to that, of having your own representation, but then having representation of others?
I think basically taking a look at the books that you already have, and if you find you're lacking something, then trying to enhance your libraries. So there's no like, oh, you have to have this many books. That changes per the child. You'll be able to see it in your child's conversation, your child's confidence too. Because if your child is lacking confidence and they're worried about their appearance, oh, that lets me know, hey, let me look at the types of books that I have. Let me get more books about X, Y, and Z. Let me sing more songs about, body image, body awareness. Let me have more conversations. So trying to have a balance, and it's hard to see that balance, but it's constantly striving to obtain, I guess, more inclusive libraries or literature in your houses.
All right, thank you. And then I guess I would say, is there anything else that you wanted to share, or are there any great, we got a question, are there any great parent groups locally that are focused on bringing diversity into classrooms that you know of?
Parent groups on that exact topic, not that I know of, but I could definitely research.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Because I know
Definitely.
there's parent coalitions that focus on a variety of things, and that may be one.
Or how might you start something like that, right, in your local community?
Yep.
You know, that might be a question to think about too, of if there isn't one, you know, a school might be a good place to start. I wonder if a library would be too.
Yes, because I know there's a couple libraries, like when I used to do trainings at the Farmington Hills Library, they used to have certain groups on certain nights and they focus on certain types of books. So I'm sure that there's some, it's just a matter of finding it. And if not, like you said, creating it.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess I would say, is there anything else that you want to share on the topic, kind of as we're wrapping up here, that you want either parents to be mindful of, or just think about when they're on this journey with their children or children that they're around, or even just bringing this about in their own community, since if it's something they're passionate about?
Yeah, I say just spreading the word about early literacy and literacy period, the importance of not only reading books, but telling stories, singing songs, talking. All of this is part of literacy, and kids need all of this. Keep practicing, keep sharing information. And I encourage you guys, if you guys like this topic, we have various classes, like new classes that are literacy based, that focus on like social emotional development, etc.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much again for sharing about all these wonderful resources, and also making yourself available as a resource too. Since I know you shared your email, if people have questions or want to do any follow-up, they can reach out to you as well. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff for some closing remarks here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley. I'll be working some of these into Jack and Luke's rotation for story time for sure. So thank you again for your help today. For more information, more resources, you can always visit connectforcarekids.org. That is the number 4, connectforcarekids.org. We have a lot of this information listed on our website there. You can also try our Ready for K program, and you can text the word United, UNITED, to 70138 to receive weekly tips on things just like this topic. And as a reminder, if someone you know is experiencing a need, whether it's housing, utilities, food, diapers, or anything else you might be struggling with, our 211 helpline remains available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We maintain a running list of available services in the community and can connect you to the supports that you need. You can also look up the resources on your own. Do that research, right, in your area by using our 211 resource database at unitedwaysem.org/211. It's also tax season. If you need help filing your taxes, there are several free opportunities available to individuals in our region. If your household income last year was below $57,000, you qualify for free virtual assistance from a tax preparation volunteer. Appointments are available now from Accounting Aid Society and Wayne Metropolitan Community Action Agency, and can be made online at claimyourrefund.com. That is claimyourrefund.com. And additionally, United Way's My Free Taxes is a free tax filing tool available to anyone regardless of income. You can get started at myfreetaxes.com. Our next town hall is an incredibly important topic: communities of interest in the Redistricting Commission. Please join us to learn about how and why you should get involved in the process of drawing our state's legislative districts. We will be joined by guest speaker Rebecca Islam, Executive Director of APIA Vote. Please visit unitedwaysem.org/virtual town halls to sign up for alerts, find out about upcoming topics on What's the Word Wednesdays, and to view our previous town halls. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and be well.